I'm Sandra Poland, attorney at law, your community legal advocate. Advocacy at 8 is my new YouTube legal series launching today, Monday, October 1st, 2018. This series of legal education videos will be posted daily at 8 p.m. Each video, in 8 minutes or less, will educate you on an important legal issue. You and your community at large will be enlightened and empowered. Thank you and your community for viewing Advocacy at 8. Today's topic, trust. Trusts have been around for a long time. They go back to ancient times. They're documents that are very useful and can serve many purposes. Trusts can protect and preserve assets and afford privacy. A trust is a separate legal entity. For a long time, trusts were basically a tool that wealthy individuals and families used. But trusts are very helpful, and even individuals who are not extremely wealthy can benefit from creating and maintaining them. Before we define what a trust is and what it does, I would like to review and define 6 legal terms that we will be using in our discussion today and over the next several days discussing trusts. Those legal terms are asset, beneficiary, inter vivos, legacy, trustor, and probate. Asset is property owned by a person or company. It's regarded as having value, and it's available to meet debts, commitments, or legacies. Beneficiary is a person who derives advantage from something, is given something, especially under a trust, a will, or a life insurance policy. Also known as an heir or an heiress. Inter vivos, that is a word that describes between living people. When we talk about an inter vivos trust, that is a living trust. Inter vivos, between living people, original Latin. Legacy, that's a thing handed down from one person to another. Also an amount of money or property left to someone in a will. 5, trustor. A trustor is the person who creates the trust. It's the one who contributes property to the trust. That goes to trustee, who is the person who manages the trust and is usually appointed by the trustor. You might also see settler being used, and that's a person who makes a settlement, or the grantor, a person that makes a grant or conveyance. You may see settler, grantor, and trustor used interchangeably. We're going to use trustor. And then probate. Probate is the legal process by which assets of a deceased one are properly distributed. It's the official proving of a will. It's the estate administration handled by by a division of the courts, and it makes sure that the obligations of the deceased are paid and the assets are distributed. Now, what is a trust? A trust is a relationship where one party, the trustor, gives another party, the trustee, the right to hold title to property or assets for the benefit of a third party, the beneficiary. Trust can be established basically for 3 reasons. 1, to provide legal protection for the trustor's assets. 2, to make sure those assets are distributed according to the wishes of the trustor. And 3, to save time, reduce paperwork, and in some cases, avoid or reduce inheritance or estate taxes. A trust can be used to determine how a person's money should be managed and distributed while that person is alive. In that case, that's a living trust or an inter vivos trust. Or a trust can be used after the person's death. That is called a testamentary trust. or a will trust. A trust helps avoid taxes and probate. It can also protect assets from creditors. A trust is one way to provide for a beneficiary who is underage, under the age of 18, or has a mental disability that may impair her ability to manage her finances. So it's very useful. There are also other different kinds of trusts for other different purposes that we'll be talking about later in the week. As we said, there are two main categories of trusts: living trust and testamentary trust. A living trust, also known as an inter vivos trust, is a written document in which an individual's assets are provided as a trust for the individual's use and benefit during her lifetime. And that's the key phrase, during her lifetime. A testamentary trust, on the other hand, also known as a will trust, is a written document that details how the assets of an individual are distributed after the individual's death. Stop it, please.